Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. The next hour is all about the entrepreneur, why they start businesses, how they make their businesses grow, how they overcome failures and achieve success. Your hosts are Bob Gibbons, founder of Riata Commercial Realty, a commercial real estate advisory and tenant advocacy firm, and Stephen Nooner, founder and CEO of Alkali, a company with a unique process that helps businesses more effectively buy and manage their insurance programs. Bob and Stephen will ask probing questions to find impactful solutions that will help take your business to the next level. And now, here's Bob Gibbons and Stephen Nooner.
Welcome to The Next Level, conversations that propel business. This is your host, Bob Gibbons. And our other host, Stephen Nooner, is not with us today, so you have a break. Lucky people. Love you, Stephen. Anyway, so we are here with another great guest. This week we have with us Michael Patton. He's the founder and CEO of Fetch. It's a very unusual name for a company, so we're anxious to hear more about that. You can learn more at fetchpackage.com. And Michael created this, and it's the first off-site package delivery solution for multifamily industry, apartment complexes, basically. And they solve the last mile delivery for those buildings for the residents. And they have a lot of clients. We'll get into that later. He comes from a corporate finance background. So welcome to the show, Michael.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Anxious to talk to you. You got a great story, but we always like to start with what we call wisdom of others. So this is basically the quote. So we have a quote, and we chat about that for a second. But your quote was pretty interesting because it was basically, nobody cares, work harder.
Yep.
Why is that? Why is that your favorite quote?
Yeah, I mean, I think most people go with some sort of, rah-rah motivational quote and pick some boilerplate language. I think coming from the entrepreneurship side, kind of cutting through the BS at all times.
Okay.
That kind of embodies, how we do business, and there's no excuses in what we're doing.
Gotcha.
And so it's kind of like nobody cares. Nobody cares what happened. Nobody cares
what your excuse is.
What we have. My car broke down. Whatever. In entrepreneurship, you're judged on your results, and that's kind of it. And so that's why I like that quote so much.
It's interesting you say that because back when I was in the corporate world, and it was small, I never worked for a giant company. Biggest company I've ever worked for in my life was like 600 people. And it was national, but it was still only about 600 people. But when it came to compensation in particular, we were always trying to figure out a way to compensate people for their bonuses or whatever based on their actual efforts, what they really were able to accomplish. And people were always trying to figure out how to sort of carve out the things that they claim they didn't have responsibility for or control over so that they would still get their bonus. Mm-hmm. But you're right, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the reasons are, whether you had control or not. It's just, did you produce or did you not produce? Did it work or did it not work?
Exactly. And I think with such a small team, we're starting to get bigger, but for a long time it was 2 guys, 3 guys, 4 guys, and you can't carve out specific roles for people.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, the group collectively has to answer for what happened. It's not, this was your job,
yes,
and you didn't do it. It's, okay, this was the 3 of our jobs, and it didn't get done, so what happened? What do we have to change? And it's funny you bring up the corporate environment because I spent the first 2 years out of school at United Health Group, which, I don't know how many employees across the nation, but tens of thousands, probably maybe hundreds of thousands. And I was on a team that desperately needed more people the whole time. And so, I wasn't compensated because I was doing the work of 2 or 3 people. So it wasn't quote unquote fair.
Right.
But you still just had to get it done. So that's probably somewhat where that stems from, in addition to the entrepreneurship angle.
That also kind of makes me think about, you use the word fair. And when I think of the word fair, I heard that a lot in those corporate environments because everybody was always talking about what's fair. Mm-hmm. Me working extra time and somebody else is not, is that fair? Is it fair for them to get paid something different? I mean, at the end of the day, whenever you're the entrepreneur, fair just isn't really a factor.
Right.
Who cares if something is fair or not? Again, it either works or doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much, it's black or white. You either close the sale, you either hired the person that you needed to hire, raised the funding round, or you didn't.
Yeah.
And so that's part of why I love entrepreneurship so much is, it's pretty clear outcomes. There's no gray areas.
No excuses. Just
Yeah.
nobody cares. Work harder.
Yeah.
And you don't even know who said that, but apparently you do a lot.
Unfortunately, and I don't really want to admit this, I think I saw it on like Instagram or something.
Oh yeah, one of those memes.
So probably, I probably shouldn't.
So
have
if I talk to your employees, are they going to say he says that all the time? We're so sick of it.
No, I try not to say it. I try not to write that on the wall or anything.
Well, so something about yourself that you told us in the pre-interview materials was that, and I'm going to quote here, I got hooked on running marathons. How do you get hooked on running marathons? I don't understand that.
Yeah. So I played baseball for a really long time, high school and then partly in college. And when I stopped playing baseball in college, then I was looking for kind of the next physical activity to do. Mm-hmm. And so one summer, junior year of college, that was kind of when I had sort of hung up my cleats, so to speak, and was looking for the next challenge and decided to run the Twin Cities Marathon. I was still living in Minneapolis. I was home for the summer. Decided to get in really good shape that summer. And so I did the Twin Cities Marathon, not really expecting that I would, get hooked, quote unquote, on it. But I think anybody who's run a marathon, like right when you finish, that adrenaline rush and kind of euphoria, it's like a drug,
Yeah, when you finish, that's the key.
Yeah.
I've never done that.
So there's a lot of points in between the start and the finish where you wonder why you're doing it. But yeah, I got hooked.
You still doing it?
I'm still doing it. I just did Denver Marathon last weekend, actually.
Wow.
So that was my 12th.
And I was struggling to grind out 3 this morning.
Well, it's hot.
Well, yeah, thank you for that excuse.
Yeah.
It's not what was it? Work harder, nobody cares. So what was your first, profitable enterprise? What did you do as a kid or your first business or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, my first was mowing lawns, but what I can speak to more, maybe it's more interesting, is pressure washing and sealing driveways.
Okay.
And it's not as big of a thing in Dallas. I grew up in Nashville, a suburb of Nashville, Tennessee, and there's all these aggregate driveways with the little pebbles, and you have to pressure wash them and seal them with this sealant.
Okay.
And I don't even really remember what gave us the initial idea. I think it was mostly we saw a lot of guys in our neighborhood and surrounding neighborhoods, mostly rednecks, would come in their pickup trucks and pressure wash and seal the driveways, and they were getting paid a lot of money to do it. So we figured if we just took here's our poor college students looking to make a buck and undercut those guys a little bit, we'd do okay. So we did that for a couple summers, and it was actually really, really profitable, and we did really well. We basically just kind of threw out a number in most of these neighborhoods. We targeted only kind of the really high level, high-end neighborhoods in Franklin, Brentwood, the nicer suburbs of Nashville.
Sure.
And so it was a tough job, though. It was 100-degree days in the summer in Franklin, and you're sitting there pressure washing a whole driveway and then sealing it with this oil-based coat. And so it was not probably the best idea in terms of how do we easily make money, because it was tough. But I think that's part of the reason why not a lot of people wanted to do it.
So did you just do that for a couple of summers and then walk away from it, or did it turn into an ongoing business for somebody?
We did that for a couple summers, and we mostly walked away. If I had wanted to, it would have been an okay business, like an okay small business. Yeah. But it was tough.
I have a friend who does that here. He does the power washing, and he also combines that with striping. So he'll come in and do a power washing of a big parking lot, but then he'll go back and restripe it as well. Yeah. So kind of putting those two together has turned into a real business, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of asphalt and driveways to get to. So
the number one job of an entrepreneur when he or she was a kid, that we've, based on our our highly scientific results of the show.
Lawn mowing.
Lawn mowing. That is the number one thing we hear. And, my son did it. And so, yeah. And the cool thing about it is that people want to help a kid who's entrepreneurial, right? So a lot of people that go into business, we find that are young, they think that they have a disadvantage because they're young. But in some ways, it's actually an advantage because people want to help a young person, especially if they were entrepreneurial themselves, and they get to say, well, Michael, when I was your age, I was doing blah, 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 and I kind of see a little bit of myself in you, and that makes them feel good. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it's definitely an advantage. And even with Fetch, we're typically talking to 40, 50, 60-year-old seasoned real estate execs.
Yeah.
And part of the concern going into it was, okay, we're taking over resident packages. It's already pretty risky in their eyes. Are they going to, entrust us with this? And there's definitely been some that I think our age worked against us because they're just used to working with, vendors that they've known for 10, 20, 30 years or something like that. But especially our early deals, I think a big part of it was they saw us out hustling. They saw us at all these events and trying to network and do anything we could to close the first few sales. Right. And they just appreciated the hustle. And so I think that definitely worked in our favor and really still does.
All right.
Today.
So give us the little quick elevator pitch. What is Fetch?
Yeah. So all these apartment buildings are getting destroyed with Amazon packages mostly. E-commerce is taking over the world, and so it's flooding leasing offices, package rooms, mail rooms with packages, resident packages. And so it's really the number one operational problem for apartment building property managers is what do we do with all these packages? We don't have enough space. The staff is spending a lot of time on it. So they're just trying to get out of the package business, quote unquote. And so we're the first company that's basically outsourcing that whole package process. So we accept all the packages at local warehouses, and then we have a software platform to communicate with residents directly to give them 2-hour delivery windows, and we'll deliver door to door.
Wow. So how did you know that this was a need?
So originally I said I worked at United Health for a couple of years. That was in Minneapolis. And so I moved down to Dallas 2.5 years ago, mostly to get out of the cold. Because
good plan.
I've Tennessean blood.
I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you there for a minute.
Sure.
We'll pick this up on the other side. We have to take a break. You're listening to The Next Level on 1190 AM. Hi, this is Bob Gibbons with Riata Commercial Realty. If your office lease is going to be expiring in the next year or two, the one thing I would tell you definitely do not want to do is exercise a renewal option. Now, that may sound a little nuts when you negotiate for that renewal option. Why wouldn't you actually want to use it? Well, the reason is because while you want to have one as a reservation for your space so the landlord can't lease the space out from under you, that option may not actually work the way you want it to now. It may have made sense 5 years ago, but it doesn't today. The only thing that changes when you exercise a renewal option are the expiration date and the rent. But you may want to do other things like have another option to renew, have an option to terminate or expand. You may want to be able to expand now or have a new base year for your operating expenses. There's all kinds of things that need to be considered. So we recommend that you renegotiate, not renew. For more information, contact me, Bob Gibbons, at texastenantrep.com. That's texastenantrep.com. Welcome back to The Next Level. We're here with our guest, Michael Patton, with Fetch. You can learn more about them at fetchpackage.com. So before the break, Michael, you were just starting to tell us about how you just moved down from Minneapolis to Dallas to get out of the cold, and you rented an apartment, I guess, and we're talking about how did the idea come about for Fetch?
Yeah, so I moved into one of the bigger apartment buildings in Uptown, 600-unit building, and so really right when I moved there, and I moved into that building November 1st. So I was there for the whole holiday rush, and so I witnessed, they were getting 400 or 500 packages a day in December.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's ridiculous. And at that building, they had a full-time package staff member that was just dealing with packages. It wasn't even, it's not a concierge building, but they had to hire an additional staff member just to accept, receive, and as residents go down to the package room, give them their package, sign it out, etc.
So that really hits their bottom line. If they have to pay a whole nother person just to do that, that's a huge cost.
It's a clear cost savings. We just have to point to, here's your resource that you're spending on packages. Not to mention their pretty giant room in that building that was just storing packages that you could use for so many different uses than just storing packages.
Okay. So you see all these packages and you say to yourself,
So originally I had a couple packages lost in that process. I don't know what happened to them, but I went down to get my package and they weren't there. And so that happened kind of at the same time as a month before I moved into the apartment building. I was living with my brother before I started my lease, and I had a couple packages stolen off the front step. So during this time, there's a whole frustration about just package receiving as the end user, as the consumer. And then when I moved into that building, it was just a light bulb moment of this is a broken process, not just from the building's perspective, but from my perspective as a resident, that this just doesn't work very well. So how do you solve that problem?
So in that situation where the packages get stolen, I've always wondered whose problem is that? I mean, is that, pick your Amazon or whomever, Zappos, whoever's going to deliver to you, is that their problem and they send another one, or is that the resident's problem, or how does that get resolved,
So typically Amazon will reimburse you
Okay.
unless you keep saying your package gets stolen. I think if you hit 4 or 5 stolen package
There's a
reimbursements, then they'll just stop
Okay.
because it's probably fraud at that point. So usually the retailer will reimburse you the first few times, but after that, you've got to figure it out.
Okay. So so you see all these packages, you see that there's this issue. When did that suddenly become, hey, I need to be the one to solve this?
Yeah.
And were you still working for the insurance company at this time?
I wasn't. I actually moved down here, and I was working similar role, finance and pricing role for Constellation Brands.
Okay.
So it was a more interesting job. Constellation Brands produces Modelo and Corona, so I was doing pricing for beer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
Not
that was
sampling, though.
Well, we had a nice little employee reimbursement package, so that was a nice perk.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed that job a lot more than United Health. But I was really, when I moved down here, I had the intention of at some point in the first year that I moved here, I'm going to look for something to start on my own. And I'm not cut out for corporate culture, and I knew that going in, but I needed to get a job to move down here. So I moved. I started at Constellation Brands, and then 5 months later, I was starting Fetch. And so I didn't last too long at Constellation Brands.
And why Dallas, by the way? Did you have the job with Constellation? That's what brought you here?
Yep.
Okay.
I was looking between Dallas and Austin and maybe Nashville, and just kind of weighing different job offers. And so I decided to go with Dallas.
So what did you do to decide that there really was a market for this? I mean, obviously the one place where you were living clearly showed you that there was that need, at least during the holiday season. But how did that translate into, hey, I'm going to give up my full-time job and do this all in? I mean, what else did you do to figure that out?
Yeah, so I went around to other apartment buildings, asked the concierge or the front office staff, to make sure that wasn't my property specific problem, and I kept getting the same answers. This is a huge problem. We're tired of dealing with packages. And right around the same time, there were a few articles, one in the Wall Street Journal about the package problem for apartment buildings. So that and one other article, I can't remember if it was New York Times or Washington Post, something like that, sort of solidified the problem that this is not a Dallas problem.
Yeah,
It's
you got
not
the
a
Wall
town
Street Journal legitimizing your ask.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right. And right around that time, Camden, who's one of the bigger property management companies in the country, cut off accepting packages for residents because they said this is costing us, I think the number at the time was like $3 million a year.
Now, that's amazing to me because that means that they have a significant competitive disadvantage against Post and all the other similar, multifamily operators that they're competing with.
Right.
So if I know if I move into this one building, I'm not going to get my packages. If I move into the other building, I am going to get my packages. That's going to make a difference.
I agree. And so Camden still today does not accept packages.
Not even through Fetch?
Not yet.
Oh,
We're
Camden
trying our
people,
best.
come
I
on.
know. Hopefully there's somebody listening to this.
We'll make sure we send them a copy of this.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that's a huge part of our selling, part of our value prop is, there's so many buildings going up in Dallas right now.
30,000 units
30,000
are
units.
currently under construction.
Exactly. And, on top of, at least for our target market, just in DFW, it's about 300,000 units. So, for your property in Uptown, where you have 10 other properties within a quarter mile, how do you differentiate yourself?
Exactly.
And so, with this, packages are a huge part of daily life for so many residents that we're able to upsell that as a premium amenity, and they can differentiate through Fetch.
And I'm glad you used the word amenity, because I know that in multifamily, all those owners, developers are really trying to figure out what are the amenities that their residents really care about.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing in office buildings. I work in office buildings. I represent companies that lease space in office buildings, and they're doing the same thing. And so they're still trying to figure out all the time, hey, is it a tenant lounge with Wi-Fi and wine lockers? Is it the shower and bicycle storage? Is it, delis? I mean, all the different kinds of things that it could possibly be. They're trying to figure that out and get an edge, or at least keep up with their competitors.
Right.
But this really is an amenity to know that, hey, I'm going to be able to get my packages. Is there any cost to the resident for using the Fetch, or do you price your model as a cost to the apartment building owner?
We bill the property owner directly.
Okay.
So we bill them on a per unit basis. Typically, they're going to pass through some sort of bulk amenity fee that probably includes some charge for Fetch. So residents end up paying for it one way or the other, whether it's through rent or through an amenity fee.
Okay.
And that's another value prop to the property owner, that typically we're charging them somewhere around $10 a unit, and they're going to probably pass through a little bit more.
$10 a unit meaning each package?
No, per month.
Oh, per unit of apartment.
Right.
Ah, I
Right.
get you.
Right.
Okay.
So 10 per unit per month, and they're usually going to actually turn it into a profit center.
And is that per unit that actually receives a package, or just per unit it's sort of like a flat fee?
Per unit building wide.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So, the good news of that is that they can actually budget for it.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not having to be at the whim of whether or not their residents are ordering a lot or a little.
Mm-hmm.
It's still just a flat fee. So that makes it a lot more manageable.
Right. And that's a big piece of the risk mitigation from that we kind of bear and take off the shoulders of the property owners, that during Christmas, even during Prime Day in July, where volume spikes like 2-3x for a couple of days, they don't have to worry about it anymore. And we bear that risk more than the property owner.
So if I'm a resident and I'm on Amazon or Zappos or any of the others, Walmart.com, little plug for all the biggies, and I'm filling out my order, I don't actually put in my own address anymore, do I?
Correct. So we, as part of the onboarding process for all these properties, we're giving you a new shipping address. So we market it as, this is your package concierge shipping address, ship everything to our warehouses, and then through the software platform, we're notifying you right when we get your package, and then you can go in and choose a 2-hour delivery window.
Okay. So the resident, is it like an app on their mobile phone, or is it just through email, or how does the communication occur?
Right now, it's a mobile-enabled website, essentially.
Okay.
It'll be a native app probably in about 3-4 months. But they're doing everything through their profile on the platform. They get a package logged in, they go to their profile, they pick a day and a 2-hour delivery window, click submit, and they're done.
And so they get a notification by text or by email?
By text and email.
Both, okay. And that says, hey, we've received your package.
Mm-hmm.
When do you want us to come pick it up? And then they pick a time.
Yep.
And so who's the person actually delivering that package to them? Is that your employee?
So we have a mix of our employees and then 1099s.
Okay.
So at each warehouse, we'll have a few full-time employees. They're driving Fetch Sprinter vans. They're doing all the bigger deliveries, whether it's a Casper mattress or something that's not going to fit in a Toyota Corolla. And then they're taking as much volume as they can. On top of that, done within the 2-hour delivery windows, and then we're filling in with 1099s. And so most of our 1099s are actually residents of our properties, which is one of the more surprising things that I didn't see.
Just trying to get
when I
extra
started.
cash. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But these people are actually people that you've vetted, and they're actually sort of tied to you. It's not sort of the sharing economy. It's you're not sort of using Uber, a bunch of people who just happen to have a vehicle that, hey, I'll take that job. And these are people you really are on your team, so to speak.
Right. So even though they're 1099s, we do full background checks. We bring them in for a little short interview and a training session, and then they're having to pick their schedule for the whole week on the previous Friday or Thursday. So
Okay.
It's all scheduled. We're trying to send the same people to the same properties every day.
And so they have the code to get through the gates if there are any, and they take it right up to the door of the resident.
Right.
Excellent.
So ideally, it's somebody who actually lives there.
Okay, gotcha.
so-
All right, so we'll talk more in a minute. We're taking another break. You're listening to The Next Level on 1190 AM.
Hi, my name is Fern, and I've been an empowered team member at Alkali for over 5 years. I first learned about Alkali through an online job board and was intrigued to learn that Alkali was a Dave Ramsey endorsed local provider. But what captivated me was Alkali's mission statement, which is closely aligned with my own beliefs. So what's kept me at Alkali for over 5 years? First, Alkali's 5 core values match my own. Second, I've been empowered to use my unique abilities to impact our community, our clients, and Alkali. If you'd like to learn more about becoming an empowered Alkali team member, visit our website, alkaliservices.com. That's ALKALI services.com.
Welcome back to the next level. We're here with Michael Patton of Fetch, and you can learn more about the company at fetchpackage.com.
So we were talking
about before the break that
sort of the
logistics of how somebody actually orders, where the package gets shipped to, and then one of your people will deliver it to the apartment complex, and they have codes for everything, and they actually deliver the package to the door of the resident, who then is there and takes possession immediately.
Right.
And do they have to sign for it and all that?
Right. So part of our platform is the driver platform. So it's similar to the Amazon delivery platform, actually, to where either getting a signature or they're taking a picture when they leave the package at the door at some of our properties that are a little bit more secure. So kind of end-to-end package tracking for the resident. They can see the full chain of custody.
What happens if they're not there?
So it depends on each property. At some properties where we're more concerned with theft, we don't leave them at the door. So then we'll try a couple times during the window. We usually try even one more time during the following delivery window. We usually reach everybody on a given night. Maybe we have a handful of packages out of 400 or 500 packages that are delivered that have to be brought back to the warehouse.
Okay. So does the driver have a way to communicate with that end customer, the person receiving the package?
So they have their contact info. A lot of what we're working on right now, kind of as a result of being a Texas-based startup, is that we had to run lean for so long. We couldn't put as much money as we wanted to into the tech platform. We were having to put all the funds into operation and making sure we could pay our drivers. So that's a big piece of now we've raised a little bit of money. We're able to start working on a little bit more advanced software platform, native apps for drivers, native apps for residents, and it'll be very much if you've used DoorDash or Postmates, similar to that experience, to where they have the driver can call the resident, text the driver, or text the support center. So there's much easier communication.
All right, so you said something there that I want to follow up on, which was being a Texas company. And the way you said that, it made it sound a bit like, as a Texas company, it's harder to raise capital from investors than it would be if you were somewhere else in the country. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, absolutely. And even Dallas-based versus Austin-based, that argument could be made as well. For startups, even though there's a ton of money in Dallas, even a ton of money in real estate in Dallas, there's not that much money that's flowing to early stage startups. And especially when I say early stage, angel stage, where you've got maybe 5, 10, 15K monthly revenue. Once you hit 25 or 30, that kind of opens up a new pool of maybe you can go get VC money or some of the more experienced angel groups at that point. But starting out, it's really tough if you don't have an existing network of people in Dallas that you might know to hit up for a 25K check or something small, versus Silicon Valley or East Coast or somewhat even Austin. I think a deck and a dream is the saying that if they think it's a good idea, you may not even launched yet, and they'll write you a 100K or 200K check just to get going.
So what is it about Dallas that makes Dallas different than Austin and Boston and is it really that Silicon Valley, Austin, and Boston are totally different than everywhere else in the country because there's such a tech infrastructure there? Is that really the bottom line?
I think so. I think New York, Boston, Silicon Valley, maybe LA thrown in there are the more mature startup ecosystems. And I think mostly it comes down to the fact that in Dallas there've been a few big victories of exits, but not nearly to the scale of even Austin, let alone the East or West Coast, to where you have guys who just sold their company for $1 billion, and now they're going to flow a ton of that money back into early stage startups. And so there's not really that cycle that has been established as much yet. I think it's starting to change. I think Dallas is starting to catch up to Austin to a certain degree. And I think Texas as an ecosystem by itself can start to compete with East and West Coast maybe 10, 15 years down the line, as some of these startups mature and exit and flow money back down into the angel round financing, but it's still a long ways off.
So now whenever you are trying to get money, it's more difficult in Dallas, but once you've gotten a little money, is it easier to hire people that are qualified here at a lower cost than it would be in one of those other hotbeds of technology?
Yeah, I think so. Working for a startup is kind of the hot thing to do.
Right.
You can attract a lot of millennials right out of school because they don't want to go work for just using a local corporate Dr. Pepper, Toyota. They're going to be more of a cog in the machine. They can go work for a startup with 10, 20 employees and actually feel like they're making a difference and impact because they are. And so that value prop alone, you can find a really good pool of talented young grads for the most part that just want to work for a startup. And because there's less around in Dallas than there would be in San Francisco, Boston, New York, it's definitely an advantage.
Plus, it's a lot less expensive to live here.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can't possibly afford an apartment in San Francisco.
No.
And even Austin. It was funny. I was in Austin a few weeks ago, and the house that I bought in Austin in 1989 for $93,000 is now on the market for almost $400,000. We should hold it a little longer, but the cost of housing in Austin is much higher than DFW as well. Okay, so talking about raising money. Have you?
Yeah. So I guess company was started middle of 2016, and so backing up a little bit. Really the end reason for me quitting my job was I got into Tech Wildcatters, which was an accelerator, still is an accelerator in downtown Dallas. And so my thinking was, okay, these 5 to 10 mentors and investors think this is a good enough idea to let me into the program. Might as well take the leap. Looking back, maybe a little bit too early, but whatever, no regrets.
How did you live, by the way? Did you have savings that you were living off of, or did you already have somebody hand you some money right then?
I had savings for a while. I didn't take a salary for the first year plus of Fetch. So
that's all in.
Starting to run dry, and then borrowing money, just whatever I had to do.
You weren't crashing on buddies' couches.
No. Thankfully, it never came to that point. But definitely, there was a pause in spending of new clothes or anything for quite a while there. And so really from the middle of 2016 up until really the beginning of this year, 2018, we were just closing 25K checks at a time. Some friends and family. We were able to get a couple kind of randomly smaller VCs in on the pre-seed funding. So today we've raised about 500K. We're just about to close on a much larger seed round.
So if I can, and if you don't want to answer it, that's totally fine. But so when you're raising that money at 25K chunks, really I have two questions on that. When you're raising money from friends and family, does that impact your ability to raise it from sort of smart investors, VCs or angels later, who have more to offer than just the money? So do they care where your money came from previously? And secondly, how did you determine a valuation?
Yeah. So first question. Really, at our stage, it's never frowned upon because the angels or more experienced investors are going to look at it and say, yeah, you had to raise money. You have to just keep the company afloat.
Better stupid money than no money.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that really was never a concern for the investors once we'd raised 100, 200K, and we were trying to raise a little bit bigger chunks. And then second question. Earlier we did more convertible notes. So we chose somewhat of a sort of generic valuation cap on the convertible notes. We weren't trying to do an equity price round. It's also a lot cheaper legally to just write up a few convertible notes and close them quickly. So that's how we got by before a price round.
But even in that situation, you still have to establish some valuation, right? At a convertible note, don't you still have to say, I'm going to give you $25,000, but I'm getting 5% of the company or 2% of the company or whatever it is.
So convertible note, you just have to have, in most cases, a valuation cap. So they're going to put in 25K, and how that works is they're going to get usually a 20% discount on the next price round, unless it's above what you determine to be the valuation cap. So for most pre-seed startups, that's probably 2 to 4 million, somewhere in there, to where if all of a sudden you're doing great, you go raise at a $10 million valuation, they're still going to convert in at the $3 million valuation cap. So it's
not to exceed.
Yeah, it's not necessarily setting a valuation, but if we were to do a price round, it would be about the same as that valuation cap. So you're just trying to find somewhat of a fair number.
So when you say use the term price round, that's where you're actually now you have monthly recurring revenue, and you're actually establishing a definitive value, and somebody's buying in at that value, and then that also establishes the value for all those previous investors that came in on the convertible note round.
Yep.
Okay. So you said you're now doing that price round, and that's going to close fairly soon. So tell us about that experience.
Yeah. Starting 2018, we all took a look and said we have to raise a large amount of money for a couple of reasons. One, because half of my time as CEO was out fundraising to just find the chunk to get us the next 2 months or next 3 months, and that's just unsustainable. I need to be focusing on the business, not just trying to find the next source of cash to keep us afloat. And so we're looking at also. We want to grow pretty quickly. We have a pretty aggressive growth plan to grow across Texas, to grow across the nation. Part of that has to come with VC money. So we went out trying to raise $2 million seed round, and we should be closing here this Friday on what will end up being $3 million.
Nice. And of course, we're pre-recorded that, so by the time people hear this will be like 3 weeks old. So congratulations. We'll come back after a break on 1190. Be back in a second.
Hi there, my name is Tommy Swanson. I'm the CEO of Stripes Agency, and it is such a treat getting interviewed by professionals. I'm looking forward to it happening someday.
Welcome back to The Next Level. Talking to Michael Patton at Fetch. So you're about to close a $2 million round. How much had you raised prior to this round?
Yeah, so we're actually going to end up closing $3 million.
Oh, whoa! Oh, wow!
We went and asked them for $2, and they wanted to put in more. So
well, now that's interesting. So you asked for a certain amount, and did they say they want to give you more because they just love the business that much and they want to have a bigger piece of it, or because they just think you are going to need more money?
Mostly the latter.
Okay.
Our goal with this seed round, and we'll be expanding to Houston in July and Austin in August. And so our main goal is to prove that, it can scale outside of DFW. We need to prove, further kind of margin and processes and add some more key members to the team. But what the VC thought that we needed to, basically, they said the $2 million is going to get us maybe 12 months or maybe a little bit more. We need to up this to $3 million. That'll give you at least, 18 to 24, give you some more breathing room.
Gotcha.
And in the end, I agreed with them. Mostly the seed round conversations, the companies go into the VC saying, hey, we want to raise money. It doesn't really matter what you say, how much you want to raise or at what valuation. They're going to come back and say, if they're interested, they're going to say, we think you should raise this much at this valuation. So what you come in with doesn't necessarily matter in most cases, I don't think.
Gotcha. So I know that you raised your initial seed or angel money, whatever, mostly from Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
This money you're going to have in your seed now is going to be coming from another city close.
Yeah.
To be named later. And that's from a VC. Did they find you or did you find them?
So we found them. And most of my focus in raising this round, I was trying to talk to East Coast, West Coast guys, but I think just throughout the process, it was more likely to raise from in Austin or a Dallas-based VC firm. And so I had my list of probably 50 or 60 VC firms, 10 or 15 of which are in Texas.
Okay.
And so I was actively reaching out to them, trying to get warm intros through my network to their general partners or their principals, and trying to get in as many pitch meetings as I could.
Now, I know you just competed and were a finalist. Congratulations on the Rise of the Rest challenge with Steve Case from AOL. And so you got to pitch that, and you were competing with 8 other companies. One of those other companies was a company called Pickup, and they're also in the sort of last mile delivery solution business. But it seems like their angle is basically a bunch of guys that happen to own pickups. It's more of the sharing economy,
right,
kind of matching up the need with the person who has the pickup truck. So a little bit different than what you're talking about. A lot of theirs seems to be coming from retailers. I bought something too big for my car, therefore you contact Pickup. So are you really not competing with them? They're not competing with you?
No, not at all. We're obviously both in the last mile delivery space, but and I know Brenda well. Pickup's a great company. They're focused on fewer trips, bigger things, higher paid drivers.
Okay.
And we're focused on higher volume, smaller things, more 1099 contractors. So it's a lot of a disconnect, or I guess a big enough disconnect that we're really never competitors in any space.
Gotcha. So who do you see as the biggest, or what do you see as the biggest threat to your business in the future?
Yeah, I mean, a big reason of why we're trying to move quickly is we're the first one to do the offsite solution, the outsourced local warehouse acceptance solution, and so I don't think our biggest competitor has started yet. I think somebody will start out of the East Coast or West Coast and will end up being our biggest competitor, and so that's why we're trying to move quickly, get across Texas, get enough of a reach to where we can be in the biggest markets first, and if not first, then shortly thereafter of whoever pops up.
Okay.
Because right now our main competitors are package locker systems, something where you install locker systems in the building. They're pretty expensive. They take up space, and they're kind of a Band-Aid. So I don't really view those companies as our direct competition. I don't think our competition has maybe formed yet.
What about the actual retailers, online retailers themselves? I mean, are they working on solutions that would sort of compete with you at that point?
Not so much. I mean, there's always the Amazon question, but Amazon is so focused on building out their base logistics service at this point that if you try to add in a wrinkle of 2-hour delivery for that volume of packages for an entire building, that's they can do Prime Now or these other 2-hour delivery services, but to do it at that kind of volume that we're doing it at, that changes their whole logistics strategy in terms of they have huge DCs, out in Capel and Garland, where we have to have these local centralized warehouses that are smaller but closer in, and that's a real key to making it all work.
So you're going to have a lot more warehouses spread around the Metroplex or whatever metro area you're in long term. So you might have a 5,000 or 10,000 foot warehouse, whereas they're going to have a 1,000,000 square foot warehouse, but then they only have 1 or 2 or 3 in a metro area, and you're going to have, 15.
Not quite that many. In Dallas, we have a design district warehouse. We have an Addison warehouse, and that can pretty much cover the whole Dallas Metroplex.
Okay.
We'll eventually have kind of an East Fort Worth warehouse to cover Fort Worth, Arlington, some of the mid-cities.
Okay.
So it's mostly the location to where we have to be easily within 10 miles, roughly, of our apartment buildings to provide that level of service.
Got it. Okay. So whenever you were, by the way, what happened on that competition?
What's that?
What happened on that competition?
Oh, well, we didn't win.
Well, you were a winner by being one of the finalists.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely, absolutely. And it actually worked out well because the VC who's leading our round did not want us to take $100K from that fund because it kind of would have muddied the waters in terms of our round. So
because that would have come with, you'd have to give them a piece of it.
Right.
So it was a winner, but it was really just an investment.
Right. So I knew it all along, and I just sandbagged it.
So you
No, I'm kidding.
the good news is, so you didn't get the investment, but you still got the exposure.
Yeah, and it was great exposure. Just in terms of getting our name out there in Dallas, in the community.
I was really disappointed that I didn't know about it in time and didn't get to go. That's the kind of thing I love to go to.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I've been to a few of those competitions. In fact, the show was a sponsor of a competition of students that EO, the Entrepreneurs Organization, sponsored, and it's an international competition. But we just sponsored the Dallas, and I was a guest or a judge, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. I also went to one that Harvard did here in Dallas for their alum that were entrepreneurs. So it's fun to see those kinds of things, but it's a lot of pressure on you up there on stage.
Yeah, especially that's probably the biggest thing that has transformed my life in going from corporate finance to being a startup. I wasn't in sales at all, and I was really a little bit more reserved. Never would stand up and want to give a pitch in front of all those people. But being the founder of a startup, you're having to sell every day, whether it's actual selling to customers or to investors to potential employees. So that's in terms of growth of my journey, I guess that's been a biggest drastic change.
So that brings up a good question, which is what, at the time that you decided to do this, knowing that that wasn't your natural personality, what was your characteristic or feature or habit or whatever? What was it about you that you thought, hey, I believe in myself to be able to do this and make this work?
Yeah, and part of it is probably naivete in terms of
it's always helpful.
I can learn how to sell and I can get good at this. And there were definitely some stumbling in the initial everything for that matter. But for me, it's always kind of going back to hard work and I trust in myself, kind of my ability to analyze and be kind of calm and collected and just knock out things on the checklist and just get things done. Just
not getting not being intimidated and just staying after it until you get it done.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So what are you, what is your biggest challenge from here?
I think for us now, 6 months ago, maybe I would have said fundraising.
Yeah.
But now that's, looking to be checked off the box to a certain degree, as we look to scale and really build a company out of our startup, it's going from startup to mature company.
Okay.
And what does that mean in terms of building out processes, hiring the right people, making sure that a big differentiator for us today is our customer service, because, I've been involved. My co-founder Henry has been intimately involved in the rollout process and the deliveries. And, we all delivered packages for the first year of Fetch. So we were all delivering from 5 to 11 at night.
Oh, wow.
So when you're delivering yourself, you're going to have a high level of customer service, and that's not going to drop off. But as we go into additional markets, and even now as I get a little bit more separated from operations, that's my number one focus is customer service can't fall off.
So we don't have a whole lot more time, but how did you know how to build out the technical infrastructure? And I know you're still in the process of doing that, but were you a tech guy? Is Henry a tech guy? I mean, how did you know what to do?
No, none of us were. And so the fourth employee that we hired was kind of a dual role of tech and operations.
And deliveries.
And deliveries, yes. We're all professional package delivery men at this point. And so he was the first one who started to build our platform. We used a couple freelancers early on, and I researched and knew enough to be dangerous on what we needed to build, at least for an MVP solution to just get to product market fit and prove that this works.
Okay.
And then now it's hiring the right people to take over that process.
Okay, and so I imagine that's what a lot of the money is about. Well, thank you so much for being our guest today, Michael. We've really enjoyed it. For our listeners, please go to fetchpackage.com to learn more or to sign up to get your packages. To learn more about the show, go to nextlevelshow.com, or you can find us on podcast or YouTube at The Next Level Show. We'll be back next week with another great guest, and hopefully Nooner's going to be back too. Bye.